There comes a moment when even the Sigma Empath, the one who feels everything, understands everyone, and forgives endlessly, simply stops caring. Not out of hate, but out of exhaustion. The energy that once flowed toward fixing others starts turning inward. The silence that once felt lonely becomes power. When a Sigma Empath stops caring, it's not because they've become cold, it's because they've finally learned who deserves their warmth. They stop chasing people who only come around when they need healing. They stop explaining feelings to those committed to misunderstanding them. Their empathy becomes selective, their peace becomes sacred, and the world, used to their endless giving, starts to feel the shift. Because when a Sigma Empath withdraws their energy, everything around them changes. The manipulators lose access, the takers lose power, and the empath finally steps into their true strength, calm, detached. This isn't the death of their heart, it's the birth of boundaries. Subscribe to Brainy Empath for more deep insights into emotional strength, intuitive power, and empathic self-mastery. And tell me in the comments, what was the moment you realized you were done caring for people who never cared back? The supply cut. When the Sigma Empath stops caring, it's not an explosion, it's a quiet power outage. The people who once fed on their emotional energy don't realize what's happening at first. They still reach out with the same manipulative charm, the same subtle guilt, the same expectation that the empath will listen, soothe, and absorb. But this time, nothing flows back. No reaction, no emotional rescue. The empath's energy, once freely given, has been rerouted inward. That's the moment the entire dynamic begins to collapse. For years, the Sigma Empath has been the emotional supply line for others. Their compassion-fueled egos, their attention-healed wounds, their presence stabilized chaos. People depended on that invisible current without ever giving much in return, but empathy without limits drains the soul, and the Sigma eventually learns that lesson the hard way. One day, they wake up realizing that their kindness has become a currency others feel entitled to. That's when the switch flips. They stop feeding the system that starved them. The effect is immediate, even if silent. Manipulators sense it first. They feel the absence like a missing heartbeat. Conversations grow awkward. The usual guilt trips fail to land. The emotional hooks no longer work. The Sigma Empath doesn't argue, doesn't accuse, they just stop participating. And that indifference is more powerful than any confrontation. Because when an empath no longer fuels dysfunction, dysfunction starves. The supply cut isn't revenge, it's recovery. The Sigma Empath finally understands that not everyone deserves their emotional investment. They learn that detachment isn't cruelty, it's protection. They no longer confuse helping with saving or connection with captivity. Their energy, once scattered across everyone else's needs, now gathers into focus. Healing, clarity, creation, peace. People who once thrived on their softness start to crumble in their absence, realizing too late that their stability depended on the very soul they took for granted. And the empath? They don't gloat. They simply walk in silence, lighter, freer, and finally whole. Because when the Sigma Empath cuts the supply, the world that used to drain them begins to fade, and their real life, their own life, finally begins. Boundaries become shields. Once the Sigma Empath stops caring, their boundaries evolve from quiet preferences into powerful shields. Before, they set limits softly, hoping others would notice, respect, and reciprocate, but manipulators never do. They push, test, and twist every no until it breaks. So the empath learns boundaries aren't meant to be explained, they're meant to be enforced. What used to feel like guilt now feels like freedom. Each line drawn becomes a layer of armor, not against love, but against emotional theft. Boundaries change everything. The Sigma Empath no longer feels the need to justify their silence, their solitude, or their distance. They stop apologizing for protecting their peace. Where once they were accessible at all hours, emotionally open to every cry, every story, every crisis, now they choose when and how to engage. Their empathy becomes strategic, not automatic. And that shift confuses the people who were used to easy access. Those who thrived on their availability suddenly find themselves locked out, facing a version of the empath who no longer saves others at their own expense. These shields aren't cold, they're calibrated. The empath doesn't shut everyone out. They simply require balance. Energy in, energy out. Effort matched, respect mutual. It's not a wall, it's a filter. Only the genuine get through, and while it might look like distance, it's actually discernment, the kind born from exhaustion and wisdom combined. To the outside world, the Sigma Empath now seems unbothered, even untouchable, but inside, they're simply centered. Their energy no longer fragmented by guilt or obligation. They've learned that empathy without limits turns into self-destruction, and that love without boundaries attracts users, not partners. Their shields don't block connection, they preserve it for the few who deserve it. And that's the paradox of the Sigma Empath's evolution. When they finally stop trying to save everyone, they start saving themselves. Their boundaries no longer feel like defense, they feel like peace. And from that peace, their true empathy, the kind that heals without draining, begins to shine again. The mirror breaks. For most of their life, the Sigma Empath has been a mirror, reflecting back the emotions, pain, and hidden truths of everyone around them. People found comfort in their presence because the empath saw them clearly, often more clearly than they saw themselves. But when the empath stops caring, that mirror shatters. The reflection that once validated others is gone. Those who depended on the empath's emotional reflection suddenly face their own emptiness, and it's unbearable. The Sigma Empath doesn't destroy the mirror out of spite. They simply stop holding it up. They stop absorbing pain that isn't theirs. They stop being the emotional translator for people who refuse to understand themselves. What breaks isn't their kindness, it's the illusion that they exist to fix others. And when that illusion falls, so does the narcissistic power that fed on their reflection. The manipulator, the victim player, the energy taker, all lose their grip once the empath no longer mirrors back their false identity. This moment is liberating, but it's not easy. The empath must face the quiet that comes after the mirror breaks. There's no chaos, no drama, no validation from saving others, just peace. And at first, that peace feels empty, even lonely. But with time, the silence becomes sacred. It's in that stillness that the Sigma Empath begins to see themselves clearly for the first time, not through others' projections, but through truth. People who once relied on the empath's reflection begin to react. Some get angry, others disappear, a few try to guilt them back into the old dynamic. You've changed, you're cold now, you don't care anymore. But those words no longer hold power because the empath has learned that love isn't proven through self-sacrifice and clarity isn't cruelty. The mirror breaking isn't the end of their empathy, it's the beginning of authenticity. The Sigma Empath finally understands that reflection is a gift, not an obligation, and those who only loved them for the mirror will fade away, while those who love them for their depth will remain, because when the mirror breaks, the empath stops reflecting others and finally starts becoming real. Emotional economy rewires. When a Sigma Empath stops caring, their entire emotional economy undergoes a quiet revolution. For years, they gave freely time, attention, compassion, energy, like a limitless resource. Every conversation, every crisis, every broken soul became a place to invest their light. They poured into others until they were empty, mistaking depletion for purpose. But one day, something shifts. They realize that emotions, like currency, lose value when spent without return. So they begin to budget their empathy, and that's when everything changes. The rewiring begins with awareness. The empath starts noticing where their energy goes, who drains it, who uplifts it, who truly values it. They stop being emotionally impulsive and start being emotionally strategic. Where they once rushed to comfort, they now pause to assess. Where they once gave explanations, they now give silence. Every interaction becomes a transaction of energy, not in a cold or selfish way, but in a balanced one. If peace costs too much, they simply don't buy in. This shift doesn't make them less kind, it makes them wise. They realize that empathy without discernment attracts usage, and selflessness without structure invites exploitation. They begin to treat their emotional energy like a sacred resource, shared only with those who've earned trust through consistency, not need. The Sigma Empath stops seeing boundaries as barriers and starts seeing them as investments that protect value. As their emotional economy stabilizes, a strange thing happens. Life gets quieter. The chaos fades. The endless cycle of giving and fixing slows to a stop. In its place grows focus, creativity, peace. The empath's energy, once scattered across everyone else's problems, now returns to its rightful owner, fueling their goals, passions, and inner growth. And ironically, that's when their empathy becomes more powerful than ever, because it's no longer leaking from exhaustion. Those who once depended on their endless giving feel the absence like a financial crash. They can no longer withdraw from an account they never contributed to. But the Sigma Empath doesn't gloat. They've simply learned that love isn't proven through overextension, it's sustained through balance. Their heart still gives, but now it gives intentionally. Because after the rewiring, the Sigma Empath doesn't love harder, they love smarter. Clarity in connections. Once the Sigma Empath stops caring, the fog that once clouded their relationships finally lifts. For the first time, they can see people not through potential, but through pattern. What used to feel like deep compassion now transforms into clear discernment. They no longer confuse intensity with intimacy or sympathy with loyalty. Their vision sharpens, the masks others wear become transparent, the energy behind words becomes louder than the words themselves. It's not cynicism, it's clarity, the kind that comes from years of emotional overexposure. Before this shift, the Sigma Empath's heart led the way. They believed in everyone's goodness, defended red flags, and made excuses for the coldness of those they loved. They mistook their own empathy for evidence of someone else's depth. But when they stopped caring in the old way, when they stopped trying to fix, heal, or decode everyone, they begin to see. They see who shows up without being asked, who listens without turning the conversation back to themselves, who values them not for their giving, but for their being. Clarity changes everything. The empath's social circle shrinks, but their peace expands. They no longer chase closure from people who benefit from confusion. They no longer explain themselves to those committed to misunderstanding them. Relationships that once felt magnetic lose their pull, while quiet, authentic ones start to feel like home. The Sigma Empath begins to realize that love isn't proven through endurance, it's revealed through consistency. And this clarity doesn't just affect how they see others, it redefines how they see themselves. They recognize that the constant giving, the endless tolerance wasn't always kindness. Sometimes it was a fear of being abandoned. Now they choose differently. Connection is no longer about survival, it's about resonance. If the energy feels forced, they let it fade. If it feels aligned, they nurture it. This new clarity strips away illusions, but leaves behind something better. Truth. The Sigma Empath no longer needs to hope someone will change because they've changed themselves. And from that transformation, their world reorganizes. Fewer people, deeper bonds, zero confusion. Because when they finally see people clearly, they stop chasing love that costs them peace and start attracting love that mirrors it. Silence reorients power. When the Sigma Empath stops caring, their greatest weapon isn't confrontation, it's silence. The same voice that once explained, defended, and soothed now goes quiet. But this isn't the silence of defeat, it's the silence of mastery. For years, the empath believed communication could fix everything. If they just said it right, if they just expressed it calmly, people would understand. But manipulators don't misunderstand, they depend on being understood. They feed on words, emotions, and explanations. So the Sigma Empath takes away the one thing that kept them powerful: access. That silence becomes a mirror, one that reflects truth more clearly than any argument ever could. Those who thrived on drama start to unravel without a reaction to feed on. The narcissist, the guilt tripper, the emotional thief, they all realize that their tactics don't work anymore. The empath doesn't flinch, doesn't justify, doesn't play. They've learned that peace is louder than noise, and in that stillness, the balance of power shifts completely. The empath's silence is not passive, it's strategic. It's a declaration that their energy is no longer public property. They choose when to speak, what to reveal, and who deserves to hear their truth. The people who once saw them as easy to manipulate now find them unreadable. Their calm unnerves those who mistake kindness for weakness. Silence becomes their boundary, their protection, and their reclaiming of control. Inside, the Sigma Empath feels lighter. There's no more emotional exhaustion from over-explaining or defending intentions. They finally understand that clarity doesn't require noise. It requires presence. Every time they choose not to engage in arguments or guilt-driven conversations, they reinforce their self-worth. The more they say nothing, the more powerful they become. Those who once drained them start to fade, confused by the quiet they can't provoke. And those who truly care, the ones who understand peace, stay. Because silence doesn't push away the right people, it only filters out the wrong ones. In the end, the Sigma Empath learns the most profound truth of all. Silence is not emptiness, it's elegance. It's how power sounds when it finally stops needing to be proven. Inner life rebuilds. When the Sigma Empath stops caring, they finally have space to rebuild the world inside them, a world that for years was neglected while they were busy holding everyone else together. Their energy, once poured into healing others, begins to flow inward. It's not isolation, it's restoration. They start remembering what their own voice sounds like when it's not drowned out by other people's pain. The inner noise quiets, and in its place, they discover something sacred, their true self, waiting patiently beneath the exhaustion. At first, the rebuilding feels strange. The empath has lived so long in reaction to others that self-focus feels selfish, but slowly they realize that solitude is not loneliness. It's the workshop of self-respect. They begin to do things simply because they bring peace. Reading, creating, walking alone, thinking deeply. Their empathy, once scattered across everyone else's emotions, now refines into wisdom. They no longer absorb every feeling around them. They observe it, learn from it, and let it pass. Inside this new calm, clarity blooms. They start to see how much of their identity was shaped by other people's expectations, the fixer, the listener, the healer. Now those roles fall away and what remains is authenticity. They rediscover curiosity, ambition, passion, things that were dimmed under the constant weight of caretaking. The same sensitivity that once made them feel burdened now becomes their compass. The inner rebuild doesn't happen overnight. There are moments of grief for the years lost to overgiving, but that grief transforms into gratitude because those years taught them what not to be. The Sigma Empath learns that protecting peace doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means choosing where to open up. They build an inner foundation so strong that no external chaos can shake it. And from that foundation, everything changes. Their creativity deepens, their intuition sharpens, their energy feels clean, self-sustained. They stop trying to earn love and start embodying it. The world around them may not understand this transformation, but it doesn't need to. Because for the first time, the Sigma Empath's life isn't about survival or service. It's about sovereignty. And that's the kind of peace no one can take away again. Magnetic independence. When the Sigma Empath stops caring, something remarkable happens. Their energy, once poured outward, begins to pull inward. The same presence that once attracted broken people now draws in respect. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Their independence becomes magnetic because it's no longer a performance, it's a vibration of peace. People can feel it before the empath says a word. There's confidence in their calm, depth in their silence, and certainty in their solitude. Before, the Sigma Empath's compassion was an open door. They gave endlessly, hoping to be understood. But now, they no longer chase connection, they embody it. They move through life without needing validation or attention. That self-sufficiency radiates a quiet strength that fascinates others. The same people who once took their kindness for granted now feel drawn to it. But from a distance, they can no longer cross. It's as if the empath's healed energy comes with new terms. Enter only with truth. This independence isn't about rejection, it's about resonance. The Sigma Empath has learned that peace is more attractive than people-pleasing. Their detachment isn't cold, it's magnetic because it signals wholeness. They no longer depend on others to reflect their worth. They've found it in stillness, in purpose, in self-respect. And that shift changes the dynamic of every relationship around them. They stop orbiting around others and become the center of their own gravity. People sense it, conversations change. Manipulators can't find a way in. Genuine souls feel safe, inspired, curious. The empath doesn't try to impress or convince, their presence speaks. The energy that once screamed, "I'll fix you," now whispers, "I'm whole." And wholeness, to a world addicted to chaos, feels like rare light. Magnetic independence is the final stage of the Sigma Empath's transformation, the point where healing turns into power and solitude becomes strength. They no longer fear being alone because they've realized they never truly were. Their energy was always enough. It just needed to stop leaking into the wrong hands. Now it attracts the right ones. Because once a Sigma Empath masters independence, they stop chasing connection and start commanding it. When a Sigma empath stops caring, the world around them doesn't fall apart, it simply rearranges itself. The wrong people fade, the right ones draw closer, and the empath finally stands in their full power, calm, grounded, untouchable. They no longer measure their worth by how much they give, but by how peaceful they feel. The same heart that once broke from overgiving now beats with quiet self-respect. This isn't the loss of empathy, it's its evolution. Because real strength isn't loud, it's the peace of knowing you can walk away, stay silent, and still love deeply without losing yourself in the process. That's what makes the Sigma empath unstoppable. They no longer seek understanding, they embody it. If this message resonated with you, it's because you've felt that shift from exhaustion to clarity, from overgiving to balance. Subscribe to Brainy Empath for more deep insights into emotional strength, intuitive intelligence, and the psychology of healing. And tell me in the comments, what changed most in your life once you stopped caring the way you used to?